Let's see here. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of If Only, an Intellectual Freedom Colloquy. And I am super jazzed about our guest, Jack Abels, president of the North Liberty Public Library in North Liberty, Iowa. I'm
It
hoping
is
we see
a
some special guests, maybe Truman and
yes,
Reagan tonight.
yes, yes,
Awesome.
yes.
But welcome, Jack. It's great to have you. And before we would begin our conversation, do you mind sharing a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so I've lived in the North Liberty area basically all my life for 24, 25 years. Met my wife in the area, family's still here. So I call this place home. Went to Kirkwood, got a degree in hospitality, which has nothing to do with libraries. But I will say that I was bored one day at work, and I saw there was like on the Johnson County thing there was an opening for the library committee, and I was like, I've always been interested in government by Truman, and it's always something that's interested me, and I was like, I'll put my name down, and I think I forgot about it for a good couple months, and then I got an email that was like, you're on, and I was like, what? Excuse me, but yeah, so I think I originally applied out of boredom at my job, but now being in it and seeing kind of, I think like we talked about at our meeting in December, kind of seeing the impact that libraries actually have on a community. It's gratifying and makes me want to pay back the fine that I owe the city of Coralville.
I bet, I bet they'd love to see you. And
Oh yeah.
and I really appreciate you offering your voice to this conversation because before we began, I preface with we talk about this a lot in library circles, but it's always a fascinating opportunity to hear about it from the perspective of those doing the leadership and governance on behalf of their libraries in their respective communities. So,
Yeah.
thank you for lending your perspective today.
Thank you.
I know I'm going
Thank
to
you.
learn a lot.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that does actually lead us really kind of nice into our first question. I'm
Okay.
curious about how you believe intellectual freedom contributes to a thriving society.
So, oh, I think, that's one of the big things of intellectual freedom is I think. But there are certain portions of society that um want to see all this go away. Want to say bye bye and want to say, you know what, we're going to put this book in your hand. You don't have a choice. They want to kind of take the freedom of, which is kind of ironic, but they want to take the freedom of being able to choose what you read, what you learn. They want to take that away. But with the staple of the North Liberty Library and libraries across the country, and even your library, obviously Iowa City, is they're a beacon of hope, and they show that you're welcome no matter race, religion, sex, color, creed, whatever. Like you're welcome, and the world's your oyster. We're going to provide as much as we can for you to learn, and then what you do with that knowledge is up to you. But I think it just goes down to um, just libraries. We need, I think we need more awareness of what the libraries actually do. We've become such a technology focused where like I'll read a book on my phone or whatever, or an audiobook, which audiobooks are kind of fun when I drive. But there's something about reading a physical book, being able to touch it. You feel a connection, and um, it gives you tools on how to process things, and that way you can make up your own mind and make your own decisions.
I think I'm seeing your hospitality roots here too, because I think about it as curation, right? Because that's my part in this
Hmm.
adventure. I've talked to others who talk about how it's about the output, it's their speech, but you're also, I think, hidden nerve of pursuit. There's this freedom
Hmm.
to actually pursue, and that requires an open, hospitable condition in
Yeah.
order to do that freely. So
Yep.
thank you for like bringing yet again a fresh
Yeah.
aspect
Of
to
course.
this very complex discussion.
Of course.
So because of your background and knowing like availability, opportunity, hospitality makes this happen, and also your position as a community leader, has there been an example that you could share with us where intellectual freedom has provided opportunity or success for the work that you do?
Oh, definitely. I'd say it boiled down to my first and really only year at Kirkwood doing the hospitality program, um, where we were given a choice on whether we wanted to not do the work and still get like a
Mhm.
decent grade or do the work and get a good grade. Um, Everybody in the class but myself chose not to do the work. And so I took that. Funny enough, I did it at the Kirkwood Library, and I never went to the library at Kirkwood, but I went there. I did it, but um, as most of my, I guess, as a little side tangent, most of my friends, acquaintances, everybody knows that I'm the president of the library, and quite often I'll get texts or emails from friends or family members about certain things that they want to see changed.
Yeah,
Some of them are great ideas. Some of them are ideas that I want nothing to do with, and
yeah.
they want a certain agenda pushed. And so it's a balancing object, and I think it, having the ability to meet with such great people like Jenny and chat and say, this idea was thrown at me. What do you think? And then we can brainstorm how that works. But you know, it, like you said, it's that hospitality of I want to be welcoming to everybody. So how can I say certain things and do certain things without um, you know, I'm a people pleaser at heart. So I hate seeing people upset. But um, again, a part of intellectual freedom is you're learning, you're knowing, you're knowing, you know, it's better to know both sides of a coin than one side of a coin. You know, you want to know things like the back of your hand. I think that's I didn't heard it in a movie once. Like I know it like the back, I don't like the back of my head. Yeah, but you libraries uh need like a radio signal on top and just to go out and just say, hey, we're here, like a beacon, um, and just give people that opportunity who unfortunately, maybe didn't grow up in an environment that enriched, nourished, promoted intellectual freedom for them to come here and learn, like, hey, I was taught this as a kid, but with access to the library and their materials, I now know, the different aspects of it. And so, um, just yeah, intellectual freedom, I think, plays obviously a huge part. This is a whole show on it, but um, it's amazing to me the amount of uh, sometimes kickback I'll get over some things that were done at a meeting or such, and so it's a lot to juggle with. It's a lot more than I thought I would be dealing with when I went to the first meeting and I saw no one sitting in the audience. I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy. But no, it's a bigger responsibility than I could have ever asked for, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
Well, I'm really glad that you're in that seat and that you're taking on the challenge because it sounds like you see it as something that's done in community. Whether you're talking to your fellow board members like Chad and Jeremy, is that who you referenced?
Hmm.
It's
Yep.
like a microcosm of the fact that librarianship is done in community. The policies are reviewed by board members who represent their larger communities. Folks can come and fill the audience if they want to attend those meetings, and so I think it's fascinating that you find space and make time for that balance because you understand that it is done by all voices. And having that hospitality background, having that balance
Hmm.
focus, I think probably is needful, right? Especially in some divisive times, which leads us to the third question. I was sort of curious, like, have you personally witnessed some challenges to intellectual freedom? And if so, how do you feel like communities can address those challenges?
Oh, definitely. I think the biggest challenge. I've seen, or I don't think I've personally faced certain challenges just because of um, I honestly I couldn't tell you why, but I've seen, for example, where I work, um, there are um, there are things that go on every day that just make it impossible for me to put a smile on my face, because some of these, I work at a middle school, excuse me,
Right.
and so some of the, you can tell kind of what kids don't have the freedom to think what they want. So they come in from from an environment at home, and they are unable to kind of grasp that, hey, there's another opinion out there, and you know we have certain Senate files and House resolutions and such that here in Iowa, at least, and I'm assuming probably some states surrounding us, that are challenging the intellectual freedom of students, and being able to explore different topics. And it's tough because there are a couple students in particular who I chat with
Mm.
about the library, and they've actually kind of helped me comb over some of the library's policies to make sure the language was inclusive and whatnot. Yeah, yes,
Nice.
yes. It was probably one of the most. It was it was. I did it because I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this work. This is going to be boring. But then they came back and they were like, you should change this, and this. And I was like, oh my gosh. So there are kids that are really involved in intellectual freedom, and there are kids that could care less, and they're like, my one side is the only side.
Yeah.
But just the biggest challenge, ironically for me, is challenging kids to open up their minds and see that, you know, there's another side to the story. You open one door, or you close one door, another one opens. Like they just need to realize that, um, an open dialogue and open thought is something that nurtures their enrichment of kind of how they think and how they feel. And um, I've I've seen a couple kids kind of flip from being, hard nosed, to they've learned something and they're like, actually, that's really awesome, thank you, and made a whole new friendship out of it with other kids. And so just seeing the impact that having the freedom to read what they want and such is something that um, I'm championing for. Uh,
Yeah.
like I said, like we've talked about, and like I said earlier, there are people that want to take that away. There are people that want to make it so that they can't pick and choose what they want. And so it's tough, but doing what I can to so I don't get fired, but also at the same time that I open up kids' hearts and minds, and lead them hopefully down a different path other than kind of where they're headed.
That's so beautiful. It really is, Jack, because I think of like libraries as being just incubators of opportunity.
Mhm.
If I'd had a middle school instructor like you, I just can't even imagine what that would have been like too, giving me access to the process to enable me to put my fingerprints on it, to have my voice heard and
Mhm.
heeded. That's just that's why public education and public libraries are so important, because I'm not
Mhm.
sure organically where else that takes place in society. And if it does in like the legislative and political process, you have to be somewhat privileged, right? To
Yep.
have access. So I think that the digital world has maybe created access. And so
Yep.
I'm sort of curious, with question four, like in our digital age, how do you see technology like influencing this process of intellectual freedom, both positively and or negatively?
There's so many narratives that are online, um, and so many false sources, misinformation, disinformation,
Mm,
um, that um, it's really easy to run with a headline, or everybody's connected now. So um, uh, you know, let's just say that a rumor goes out about someone, and
Yeah.
everybody knows right away because everybody's texting about it or on whatever. But I think one of the positive things is there's a ton of like ebook clubs that I've seen where
Yeah.
like an author is like, hey, be part of my ebook club. Here's a preview of it, and kind of get people, entice people to read more. And I've participated in book giveaways and all that sorts of stuff. And so it's a very, in this age of I don't want to leave my house, right? Like I'm chilling in my pajamas all day, like I'm not leaving. We can hop on a Zoom call and talk about a book we just read. So I think technology helps in that way.
Mhm.
And the thing that going along with what we're talking about, when you brought up at our December meeting about libraries being the be all catch all, right? So like, um, if you would have told, oh, Thurgood Marshall that we would have computers in our libraries, he probably would have. I don't know. I don't know. But um, we have computers. We have uh, just so much technology for people to use, and I think it's important for libraries to stay up to date on that technology, as up to date as they can with the resources they have, but staying up to date and letting the public know that this is a learning opportunity for them. So like, come learn how to code or whatever, take a free class or something. And yeah, it's amazing to me to see the advances technology has made just since, well, I got my first phone in sixth grade. It was a flip phone. And I miss how simple it was. I miss how it was a call or a text. That was all I could do. But now, it's that's a different story for a different day. But just the amount of just uh, I think people sometimes are scared to share their opinions on social media about something, and if they
Yeah.
do, they'll get attacked for their opinions. And so I think that kind of drives people away from posting about what they've read and whatnot. Because you mentioned that you read book X and someone really likes book Y and hates book X, they're
Yeah.
gonna they're gonna tell you that you're wrong, that book sucks and all that, and that's gonna discourage someone from reading. And so I
Mm.
think that goes back to intellectual freedom. And okay, maybe the person that liked book Y should read book X and see if it's people being one-sided. And just I think the cure is just you have to be open-minded. You have to be welcoming. You have to be open-minded to everything.
You're bringing up a lot of really fascinating thought bunnies here that I'd like to kind of like make sure I'm understanding fully because it feels like the internet technology connects us, which is a benefit, but it distracts us. But
That
then I
is,
think
yeah,
you're also your reference to Thurgood Marshall. It's like the Second Amendment was not quite prepared for rocket launchers, but it wasn't prepared for Twitter either. And
exactly.
so the structures not only of government but law almost cannot keep up with the acceleration of development.
Hmm.
And so there's something to be done with that. Like
Yeah.
like you said, open-mindedness and acknowledgement of that. So I think it's like first it's the actual mechanism, which I find profound, the division there
Hmm.
that you made, and then also the policy and the structures, which yeah, you make yeah, no idea we'd have open access computers and public printing and
Exactly.
but then
Exactly.
I think the cultural point that you make is profound as well because we are assigning the pursuit of information or the perusal of information as a characteristic. So if I read the Atlantic versus the Washington Post, this quote unquote says something about me, and in fact, we're almost incentivized to identify ourselves by these
Yep.
markers. But
Yep.
how is that actually serving us when information is meant to inform us and guide us? But we're allowing it to actually define us.
Yep. Yep.
That's I'm gonna kick that. I'm gonna pickleball that right back to you and just ask like,
Yeah.
is there something there? Because I don't think I really have given that as much thought as I should. That what I pursue
Yeah,
shouldn't necessarily define who I am as a person, or if it
exactly.
should, let's examine that for a minute and how
Exactly.
secure we feel in that notion.
Yeah. Um, you know, that's a good one. Um, I feel like when you get information from, like
Hmm.
you said, let's compare like the New York Times to, uh, I don't know what's the opposite of New York Times, probably some blog that no one reads.
Right.
But they're both posting the same story. There's going to be, hopefully, there's going to be information that's useful in there. But I think the toughest thing, kind of circling back on the technology, and intellectual freedom, is there's sometimes a bias behind what we read. And so if you're talking to someone and you say, "Hey, I read in uh, I read in the New York Times, or I read in USA Today, or the Washington Post that this happened here," and like, "Oh, well,
Hmm.
that's because you use a biased news source."
Right.
Um, I mean, everyone has a natural bias. No, I don't think anyone is split evenly down the middle. If they are, I would love to find them, but there's a
Right.
bias in everything, and the fact that the technology and such has just created this to where if you get information from a source that's deemed too liberal or too conservative, that
Yeah.
it's not the correct information. Um, and I think that it all just boils down to get the facts, form your own opinion, do your research at your library, figure it out for yourself. That's
Yeah.
the biggest points to back that up with intellectual freedom it boils down to keeping libraries open, keeping them um, supplied, obviously, giving them resources, and then letting the public make the decisions. And I think that scares some people, so that's why they're trying to cut back on what's available and whatnot.
Right. And if you do tie it with identity, because like as a librarian, I know the difference between the rigor of an article on the conflict in Russia and Ukraine is
Hmm.
going to be different for the New York Times than it is like the latest update on Wikipedia. But I do have tote bags from both institutions
There you
because
go.
I support them, and there's that commercialization of content, both with
Yeah.
advertisements and sensationalism, but also by branding us by what we read. So I'm going to put a pin in that and just think on that for probably the next week because I'd never had that thought introduced to me before. But
Yeah.
it's like it really thinks about the echo chamber is not just the people who agree with you, but also the sources that make you feel a specific way about yourself. And there might be a reason for that, but you have to be very careful with that, right? Because it could flip on you.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
makes me wonder because you and I have sort of addressed, okay, so it's hard to do this work. Diversity
Hmm.
of viewpoint is a source of friction. So then, as a community leader and contributor, Jack, I'm just curious what you think we can do. You said open mind. I think that's right. But are there ways that we can open dialogue and diverse perspectives while encouraging respectful discourse? Like, do you have any like tools that you use or
I think
mechanisms?
I think the toughest part is being respectful about it because anywhere you go, if there's a differing opinion, it's a shouting match. Um, Sometimes depends on what if it's a hot button issue, then you know don't even bring it up. Like politics at family dinner, just don't touch them. Um, I made that
Just
mistake one. I made that mistake one time, and it was not a fun dinner to attend. But just it boils to me, at least, it boils down to respect.
yeah,
You need to respect the person's views as well as they need to respect your views. So again, it goes to being, obviously open-minded, but having a discourse and having a conversation where it can be productive,
yeah,
but at the same time you can challenge each other's points. Um, so obviously it's not going to be like a conversation on the street, and not like a passing by conversation, but also it doesn't
yeah,
have to be formal like a legislative session. It can just be we're having a community meeting.
yeah.
Here's what's going on. Please bring up your points, and some people take it a little too far at some board meetings and such. I remember when they were doing the masks in schools and such, and I would see
Right.
updates of just people screaming at board members, um, and that hurts not only um, the board member, but it also hurts the school, the community, because all this negative attention is posted on it, and so no one wants to come to the community. But um, it's tough to it's tough to kind of it makes me sad to see kind of what's happening. We're fortunate um, to live in a good county sometimes. We're lucky here. We have the university and all that stuff. But I couldn't imagine growing up in a different county where my intellectual freedom is challenged.
Mm.
Where I don't have access to things. I don't have maybe the nearest library is 2 towns over, right? And the school library only has one shelf of books.
Right.
Um, and it's the sad reality is that's happening. That's happening a lot quicker than I think, excuse me, people see and people want to
Mm.
know. It's like um, it's just it's scary to kind of see the thoughts that people have are challenged on a daily basis, which is good. You should it's bad to form an opinion and not think through it. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you know what? I hate dogs. That's my opinion, right? I'm not going to think about
Well,
it. I've got 2 dogs. I
I
absolutely
was gonna
love
say,
my dogs.
did Truman and Reagan hear you? Because if they did, you might want to take that back.
Oh no, they they love me. I hope. But there's so many obstacles that as community leaders and um, as members who want the like a teacher that lets students do an open book test. There's so many
Right.
things as community members that we want to do for the community
Hmm.
that there's this narrative behind it that we have this we have this all this other plan. It's all part of a grand scheme of we're taking away X, Y, and Z, and
Right.
um, if people would just calm down. That's the biggest one. People get very upset very quick. So if people just step back, take a deep breath, it's. I love when people are passionate about things. I'm very passionate about history. My wife is not. So when she says something about history that's completely wrong,
Hmm.
I get loud and I go, I don't yell, but and then it takes me a second to step back and be like, oh, she actually doesn't know much. So then
Hmm.
educate her on it. Um,
Hmm.
just being able to have that open mind and um, just it's a conversation that I think needs to happen in um, more kitchens, more living rooms, dining rooms. Of this is an open dialogue is the biggest thing. An open and respectful dialogue while not you don't want to essentially you don't want to always be like your point's correct, I'm switching my point. Like standing on what you believe in, but also understanding other people is the toughest thing for us as a society to do, I believe. um and it goes back to getting all your information from one place or another and all that. But it's so important. I Till the day I die, I will say that accept everybody with open arms. Accept everybody.
Hmm.
Maybe I like white milk and you like chocolate milk. I'm still gonna call you a friend because milk is milk. But um, just being acceptive of everyone that has different opinions um, of you, because now I feel like I sound like my father, but now um, but now you get uh, someone has a different opinion of you, and automatically you hate them just because of one opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's just the way that uh, everything is going. We used to be like this kind of, and now
Yeah.
we're like this, and there's no one in the middle to kind of bring everybody together. That's where libraries step in. That's where libraries step in with the with the resources they have, with the staff that's passionate about books. Why do you want to play ball now? I am talking.
Because it's important.
Yeah. But it's that pillar of the community where
Mhm.
intellectual freedom is not challenged. Resources are available for anyone and everyone, and you can have a conversation with someone about their viewpoint, and it doesn't have to be a screaming match. And I think that's the approach that I think the North Liberty Library. I think I'm going to try and influence as long as I'm fortunate enough to be on the board of open discussion. You don't like something, talk about it. Don't get
Yeah.
riled up, post about it, and then never. Yeah. So it's
Well,
tough.
I appreciate you bringing up some fairly like close to the heart examples, whether it's like a family dinner or like interpersonal relationships. Because I think when it comes to partners or spouses, siblings, parents, children, like we can get very excited, but the stakes are the highest with those relationships. So if we can figure it out at that level, it makes me wonder how we can figure it out like at a broader level, and
Hmm.
specifically with yours, because that's kind of how I felt when I was on the governor's commission of libraries, where it's like I applied, I was interested, and then quite a while later, I just like I found out our county safety supervisor's like, "Congratulations, Sammy," and I'm like, "On what?" And they're like, "Oh, the governor appointed you," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I feel like there was a deep dive. I'd been in
Yeah.
libraries for quite a few years, but the world has changed pretty rapidly over the last, I'd say, 7. And so
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
curious. I'm winding around to like this question on policy, where as you find yourself in these rooms, Jack, and as you learn that there are federal implications and state implications and county implications, it's like what policies do you think are crucial, whether it's like for media or schools or libraries, to continue that good work of serving as a space where folks can come together?
Yep.
What policies are you like identifying as, oh,
Yeah.
this we got to keep our eye on this?
Yeah. So let I'll tie it back first to when we brought up um, uh, Thurgood Marshall and the Second Amendment, right?
Sure.
Like you said, Twitter. No one knew. No one even. Yeah. So
Yeah.
um, it's a tightrope to walk, and I think that's why you don't see a lot of governing boards or anybody really saying, here's what we kind of want to do, because immediately everyone's gut reaction is, oh, you're taking away my Second Amendment right.
Okay. Yeah.
um at least that's kind of the narrative that I get around on
We,
like
we
my
share
social media.
we
Yeah.
share a neighborhood. I totally hear what you're
Yes.
saying.
Yes. And so it's tough because you want an open source, you want people to be available to get whatever knowledge they want, but at the same time, there needs to be some protections in place, I think, at least.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes I think, there are certain governing bodies that try to make it too protected, and they're like, "Oh, we're doing this for the kids." When in reality, if anybody's going to figure out how to get information they shouldn't read, it's going to be kids. They've grown up with technology. They know all the shortcuts. I've seen it firsthand. It's kind of disturbing. But yeah, it it's such a tough thing to do, um, because you don't want to make anybody mad, but at the same time, you don't want to have access to the worst thing you could possibly think of, but you also
Mhm.
want to have access to someone being able to learn something. And, I think with boundaries rather than,
Hmm.
like laws saying that you can't view this, like there's, if you say someone can't do it, they're going to do it. You know what
Right.
I mean? It's like saying I can't tie my shoe. Well, I'm going to learn how to tie my shoe and I'm going to tie my shoe. Um,
Yeah.
and it's so tough. Like I said, it's that line, it's that thin line that I think we have to try and walk,
Hmm.
where we we are welcoming of an open dialogue. We let everybody, get their sources that they want, but at the same time, there are some things that just shouldn't be allowed,
Hmm.
um, and making sure that those stay not allowed, I think, is a good thing. Um, but also, you have to protect someone's Second Amendment, and so I think either it's a total overhaul of the Constitution or certain amendments,
Yeah.
or I think we're just going to keep going down a rabbit hole of, it's going to be like the Hunger Games, for
Oh,
example, where
right.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's, or saw the movie Soylent Green the other day.
Oh,
Um,
with
yeah,
Heston? Yeah.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
boy.
that's a good movie. But it's tough because I want people to learn. I want people to grow. I want them to expand their knowledge. And
Hmm.
nothing can teach you better than a book how to expand your knowledge,
Yeah.
because it's physical. It's right there in front of you. You can reference it anytime you want.
Yeah.
Um, but it's tough because it's that Second Amendment. You have those people that just say, you know what, anytime you even bring up doing anything, immediately Second Amendment can't do it. Then they clog it through the courts, clog it through anything they can to make it to not happen.
Well, and I appreciate your bravery in this conversation because I think talking about like even like the First Amendment and free speech, even when you're president of a library board of trustees, can be a little tricky because you feel like there's a role to play. So your commentary on boundaries, I think, finds us some common ground there. Because like a very
Mhm.
obvious boundary of information and what we share would be like confidentiality of patient
Right.
records, right?
Yep.
Like I know it's very difficult for caregivers and parents sometimes when we're trying to unpack that policy and
Hmm.
remind them that Iowa code, like in our examples, um,
Yes.
protects the privacy of minors,
Yep.
and so it's like there are pieces of information that we withhold and we know the solid reason for it from
Hmm.
certain parties, so we're familiar with the exercise of doing it. If you extrapolate the details, the actual mechanism by which we do this and perform this on a regular basis to safeguard liberty
Yep.
and to like let's progress society are in place. I feel like maybe an examination of boundaries and framing it and lensing those types of conversations there, because you hear a lot about it with hate speech too,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so I appreciate your bravery in this moment because these are not easy conversations and you hold
Yeah.
them publicly. And
Yep.
I don't know about you, but I'm always learning. And so people are
Yes.
watching me learn in real time.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not always comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
think.
I appreciate what you're teaching me tonight and what our audience gets to learn from you because again, I'm going to come back to like that lens of boundaries that you're talking
Hmm.
about where it's like maybe absolute restriction is a non-starter,
Hmm.
but we still have to examine some of this on the spectrum where we're not listening to each other. And I'm not advocating for any piece of it. I think
Right.
if I'm advocating it's at all, it's for the process by which we
Exactly.
can have these conversations and walk away
Yep.
knowing that like it wasn't a relationship. I haven't canceled you in my head. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And hopefully same,
Exactly.
you know,
Yes. Same. Yes.
because we
Yes.
have the good work to do together, not only in
Yes.
Johnson County, but hopefully, just for furtherance of society in general.
Yes.
Um, yeah, they're
Yes.
counting on us, Jack.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of like parents who want certain things not in school, but
Hmm.
then they're like, we want what's best for kids, so we don't want them to learn,
Right.
that's kind of what I think about. And coming from two educators,
Oh,
fortunately, both my parents were teachers. My dad was an administrator, and um,
cool.
yeah, just the struggles of what they were allowed to do
Mm,
progressively over the years. Because, like I said, it was those family room, family dinner conversations of this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and so it's you know it's to the point where I think if you see that one group kind of it's like a puppet master. They're gonna start putting people that they really like, and that will do their bidding in certain places to where um, bye bye to your intellectual freedom. You know,
mm,
we're
yeah.
gonna, you know, I think was it Nikki Haley said in an interview, like we
Yeah.
want it was something about she basically wanted to infringe everyone's First Amendment right by like you had
Oh,
to register something. I was related. I think it was related to TikTok, which is hilarious, by the way.
right.
Um, but she was like, you need to register everything and have certain guidelines behind it, and that's just an attack on free speech and what it means to be an American. So for her to claim that, you know, she loves America, loves everything about it, but then says, I want to know all the information about you that's humanly possible. I feel like
Right.
that's probably the most un-American thing you can say, in my opinion.
Well, I just find it fascinating, like on a global perspective too, because we've seen societies that are like signing your physical credit with your social credit. So there's
Mm,
which opens the world up to right think, wrong think, with
hmm.
physical and material consequences. And I feel like we need to have way more conversations as a society before we jump on that
Yes.
bandwagon. But then
Yes.
additionally, you're a history buff. I
Hmm.
think about just the wonderful good that has been accomplished because of anonymity. So, like the Arab Spring, for example,
Hmm.
took place. How would that revolution, or even like Occupy Wall Street, whatever way you feel about both of these events, they happened exclusively on social media to get it
Hmm.
momentum. And so I think there's the loss of the opportunity there. But then I also, again, like it's that balance that you talked about earlier, where it's like, okay, so then how do we balance that with providing safe, productive spaces? And what is government's role to do that versus like private entities' role? Yeah, a lot big stuff. I'm
Yeah.
not sure we're solving it all
Yeah.
tonight, but I think it's great
No.
to talk about it. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like to, when I was younger, I was younger. I was really big into Parks and Rec. And I was like,
Oh
you know
yeah.
what, when I grow up, I'm gonna be Ron Swanson. Because I think one of like the first lines he said was like privatize everything. And I was like, hey, money's not a bad thing. I don't mind that. But you know, getting older and realizing that, you know, on the outside, these guys might, you know, say that they're all for it, but you know that they're not. And so, um, you know, granted, there's a difference between running a park and running a library. I will admit,
Sure.
his is fictional in Indiana, um, but um, you know, there's um, certain entities that want things privatized, and they want it's again it goes back to intellectual freedom of wanting to control what you read, what you think, what you learn. Um, and you know, like you said, you're seeing that with the combining of you get like a it's like that Black Mirror episode where they're
Yeah.
walking around with the phones and you upvote people and such. And
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but that scares the pants off me. That is to think that as a society, that's something that could happen where everyone has to be fake. You can't be your true self. You can't
Hmm.
think your own thoughts. That's the scariest part to me.
Right. And will it happen without it being that overt? If we
Hmm.
can't become comfortable with exploring thoughts, if we teach our children what to think versus how to think, will there actually need to be a structure put in place to accomplish it, or will we do it to ourselves? Right? That's the so like I mean this is going to lead into the next like the penultimate question where I'm going to ask you what I'm you're jazzed about. But I think I'll start by saying like I'm jazzed because
Hmm.
it's not been overtly obvious to me that I could host these types of conversations and learn from others
Hmm.
and invite the audience to learn from these perspectives. So I'm jazzed that we're doing that good work,
Hmm.
right? Because it takes vulnerability. It takes like let's take the ego off and realize that
Yep.
despite the fact that like I've served internationally and nationally and
Hmm.
regionally on intellectual freedom elements, I consult for that. It's like you're never done learning, and you
Hmm.
always can learn from other people.
Yep.
And specifically these pieces, these tenets, they have to be done in community because
Hmm.
the Constitution footnotes
Hmm.
by Sam, it doesn't get us there, right? Unless I'm
Exactly.
creating my own
Exactly.
little independent nation in my backyard.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm jazzed that we're
Yeah.
holding space for these conversations because if we are going to mitigate self censorship, I think it's
Hmm.
more of that. And I don't actually even perceive us as being across the divide politically, socially, or like policy wise. But if you think about it, like you're my boss, right? You're the
Hmm.
public. And
Hmm.
so it can be a little hard sometimes to lean in and talk about these are the tenets of librarianship and why I'm going to guide you as a citizen leader in this
Yep.
direction and advise you. But at the end of the day, it's your library that you're
Hmm.
going to do what you're going to do with. And so I'm jazzed about these
Yep.
conversations taking place. They weren't, at
No.
least for me, 3, 4 years ago.
No.
We've talked a lot about like the issues and how we would like to go about solving them, but I am curious as we start to conclude our time together, what you're jazzed about and excited about when it comes to intellectual freedom. You're an educator, you're a board
Yeah.
president. Do you have examples that you could share with us?
So I think the thing that gets me most excited, it's a catch 22, is all the information that's out there and
Yeah.
the conversations that are being had, whether good or bad. I think they open up people's mind, and so just I'm loving, you know, the different perspectives that you get from a library, because there are books that lean one way and there are books that lead another way. Um, I love the fact that people want to learn, but I'm also very concerned about kind of the source bias that they might get, because
Mm,
it's very, you can tell when something's opinionated, right? At least if they do it bad. But I think I just, I love the work that uh, the libraries do in this area in Johnson County
mm,
and around the state of this is who we are, this is what we provide, love it or leave it, and as a kid, I would go to a library and I'd be like, yeah, I'm bored out of my mind. But I was not a big reader as a kid. But as an adult, a board president of someone who uses the North Liberty Library,
yeah.
um, it's a beacon of freedom. And
Mm,
if you go up to the average person and you say, "Hey, libraries advocate for freedom," they're going to be like, "Yeah, you're lying to me. You're not. You're not."
mm,
Nope, I get freedom from my phone. I get freedom from Twitter or Facebook or whatever.
mm,
When in reality, that's not the case. Libraries are uh, they're a hotel that you can't sleep at. It should be a melting pot for everybody. It should be a destination for everybody to go to, and just be willing to learn. I think that's the biggest thing is, um, you know, earlier in my life, I was pretty closed-minded. I
mm,
was pretty set on, um, you know, my way. It's my way or the highway. And through experiences, and through learning, you know, there's dialogue that needs to happen, and I think it starts with local governments. local boards, libraries, you name it. But um, I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what happens in this next year in terms of kind of where we go as a country, and I
Yeah.
think that will be a very good indicator of kind of what happens to libraries, what happens to intellectual freedom, what happens to uh, people's ability to be truly true and free.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's kind of nerve wracking sitting and waiting. I'm not a very patient person, and November can't come soon enough.
Mm.
Um, it's to the point where uh, you know I a lot of people don't want to get involved um, in government, and they don't want to. They want to hide behind a screen. They don't want to share their opinions because they're afraid they'll be judged. Um, but I, if you do your research and you have a, a an opinion that you can back up, then
Hmm.
excuse me, I think not only does that um, not only does that help you in the position you're in, but
Hmm.
it allows you as a leader of the community to essentially just provide a well researched and a well valued opinion. And I think people are afraid of the backlash of that, or they're lazy and they don't want to do the work and figure out, you know, that maybe their opinion isn't correct. And old habits die hard is something that I've learned a lot. And so
Yeah.
um, through research, conversation, being that beacon of freedom, that's one of the things. When I met with Jenny for the first time, she's like, "We're a beacon of freedom. We're a library. We want to be open to everyone." It was really amazing for me to hear that come from the leader of that library,
Yeah.
um, and I just want to be an echo of that. I love to see the amount of learning. Like I said earlier, there were kids that helped with inclusive language, and you know, as much as I hate to admit that some kids have changed my opinion on some things, they have, and it's and it was all through respectful conversation. That's the thing.
Mm.
Uh, it wasn't like a conversation where I was yelling at them or they were yelling at me. We had a debate. We had a respectful, civil debate, and
Ah,
I think seeing more of that and capitalizing on uh, just the civility of a structured debate that someone can enjoy, I think is something that needs to happen. And I'm afraid that sometimes people are too scared to share, like I said, their opinions, and so they don't want to have that debate. They don't want to be wrong. Because being wrong is scary. But I mean, if
right.
you're if you're scared to be wrong, then you're scared to form an opinion. You
And
should
as
be
an educator, that's part of the process. We
yeah.
learn by being wrong, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can't avoid it if you want to learn.
Yep.
Um, so, just for context for our audience, Jenny is Jenny Garner, the director of the North Liberty Public Library, and currently the president of the American Association for Small and Rural Libraries. So, her
Mm-hmm.
talking about smaller and rural libraries being the centers of community life and discourse and beacons of light really strikes at the heart, I think, of what small and rural libraries are tasked to do and do
Mm-hmm.
really well. And I'm really not surprised, but also grateful that her word spoke to you and has helped you and guided you in this journey. My last question, because it's just so much fun and I'm nosy, is to ask you what you're learning. But I want to identify a couple things I've already learned from you, if I may.
Okay. Yeah.
The first one is just that your profound openness. I think I could take a page out of your chapter on that, and the gift of your time and meticulous thought. I see the time you're investing in your students and helping them be part of the process. I see the time you're investing in yourself to learn and contribute to that process. But I want to again thank you for the gifts of your
Thank
time and
you.
perspective this evening.
Thank you.
Um, but I am also just sort of curious if you want to share with us anything that you're currently learning.
Well, currently I am learning about kind of the different. I'm diving into the kind of the psychological effects of misinformation, and
Fascinating.
so yes, and so I'm reading some books. I'm coming at it. I'm reading books. So I'm reading books that were written during the previous presidency on why he's good and why he's bad.
Okay.
And I'm trying to kind of develop, or trying to kind of see where those opinions came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an Excel spreadsheet where I'm correlating, this author wrote this book,
Yeah.
and what was the sales of the book? This author wrote this book. What was the sales of that book? And kind of,
Wow.
yeah, I'm a big political nerd, and so I'm just learning about because you hear all the time misinformation, disinformation, and immediately some people are like, yeah, I don't care. Like I'm tired of hearing
Right.
that phrase, but it's something that I think uh, it needs to be addressed, and just learning how certain things happen. And I hate to admit that I'll read a book by a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
The governor Jesse Ventura. I read one of his books, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. And then I read, kind of someone that was on the opposite side of Jesse Ventura, and I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And so I was able to have that internal dialogue of there are two different opinions. They were both hitting at the same fact, but they were
Mm-hmm.
both. It was both. They were both back. No one was right or wrong. Yep. And I think the day that we get a book that drives down the middle of the highway and not on one side or the other, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of brings us together uh, is a day that I want to see in my lifetime. A book where people read it and go, yes, I agree. Like this, and everybody around is like, yes, this makes sense. Where
Mm-hmm.
instead of being attacked for what they feel, it's a welcoming feeling, and so I'm trying to see kind of what motives are behind certain. I mean, some of them are obvious. You have an ex-politician writing a book; they just want to make money. But
Mm-hmm.
if you find a book like the book I'm reading now is called Brave Men by Ernie Pyle.
Uh-huh.
It's an account of his experiences in World War II, and so that's a book that there's no bias. It's basically his diary. It's a perspective. Well, it is a bias. It's his perspective of things and events as they played out. But I think we need to get back. There are people that are certainly very passionate about uh, making stories, writing books. I think some of the greatest people to ever exist were authors.
Yeah.
Um, but I think we need to get back to a time where um, we respected what authors said. And so I'm kind of learning. There's I'll read the book, find the author, find the sales, and then kind of see the comments and reviews
Mm-hmm.
towards it. And there's definitely a bias I've seen so far and a leaning I've seen so far. But it's just it's amazing to me kind of where we were basically 10 years ago to where we are now. And
I
just to see in some areas we've made great progress. But in other areas, it's like we're yeah we're
impressed.
yeah yeah we're taking some people want to take uh, two steps forward and one step back, but
Right.
honestly, they're taking half a step forward and 15 steps back. Um, and goes back to it all ties around to being open-minded and again being that beacon of freedom for people to formulate their own opinion. I think is the biggest thing is I want people to understand that going to a library,
Mm-hmm.
um, some people think I've had I had a just a quick note. I had a friend that texted me when I first told him about it. He's like, "Isn't that just where all the homeless people hang out?" I was like, "Yeah,
Um,
you're actually kind of wrong. You're actually wrong." Um, and so respectfully, I was educating him through it. But
right?
as much as I wanted to, you know, call him everything under the sun and be like, "You're not my friend anymore," be like, "This is that you're actually wrong, and this is why." And so, um, I hated libraries as a kid because I hated reading, but
Yeah.
as an adult, seeing the value of, a library is just not a place where you go, you check out a book, you go home, and you read it and return it. A library is a place where knowledge nurtures and knowledge grows, and people are able to share what they've learned, what they feel, and a hopefully respectful discourse. And I look forward to having I look forward to trying to um, team up with the Iowa City Library, hopefully, because I have a fine at the Corva Library and I don't want to talk to them. Um, but teaming up with local libraries and having like a monthly open dialogue, open discussion. Anything's on the table, and just
Yeah.
being that freedom that we preach about. It's about practice what
Hmm.
you preach, and so I'm looking forward to getting to work with area libraries on we'll have snacks, we'll have drinks, non-alcoholic, obviously, um, of you know we're about freedom. What are your thoughts about this? And just having that open dialogue and everybody can be respectful, I think is something that I think we all can look forward to. Don't know if it'll happen, but it's the thought that counts from some things.
Well, I'm in 100% because like I could do this for another hour.
Yep.
Every answer you have provided just gives me like two or three more thoughts where I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's profound because like just to identify your example first, where it's like obviously we're going to have that immediate feeling, that response when somebody articulates in a diminishing capacity something we highly value.
Hmm.
But you and I both have a unique perspective. We weren't library kids,
Hmm.
right? I read much more nonfiction than fiction.
Hmm.
And so talking about a deep dive fantasy or a cozy mystery, just that's not my language.
Yep.
But you and I both, I think, have this perspective of the collective and the greater
Hmm.
good. And just because something doesn't serve me a specific way doesn't mean there isn't value in it. So your
Yes.
idea earlier of serving as megaphones and amplifying the importance of libraries is crucial because you and I are both living examples that you can do a 180, where
Hmm.
you might not see the value in something, but you can learn about it. And more importantly, you don't have to have it personally benefit you to find it profoundly valuable and important for other people to have.
Yep.
So I really appreciate the gifts of your time and your perspective. And then I'm just totally jazzed about what you're learning and that you have this Excel
Yeah.
sheet. And I'm going to come at you later, Jack, and
Yes.
talk about that more because I'll leave this thought bunny and hope that I can drag you back to a second episode.
Yes. Of course. Of course.
There's the Randian concept that there's so much information we no longer care because we're just
Mm.
saturated as opposed to like the Orwellian where it will be held from us. And so you identified misinformation, disinformation. I am very curious about, and I'm still assembling my philosophy on this,
Hmm.
but the difference between information and content and whether like oversaturation of a specific topic adds credence to it or weight to it that otherwise we wouldn't assign it. And so there is also a part of me, it's like, if we're talking about this topic and that's all that the media is covering or that's only the books that we're purchasing, maybe presence could be perceived as endorsement.
Yep.
But the presence of a program at a library or a display at the library or a book in the library is not endorsement. But I think there's
Yes.
a correlation between how we feel about that,
Hmm.
and our perception. And so I'd love to come at you later and talk about whether there is misinformation, disinformation, and information saturation, or if at some point we tip over to this is just content, it's not actually information because it's
Exactly.
no longer informing me.
Yep. Yeah.
But beyond that, you have been so gracious with your
Thank
time.
you.
It was nice to
Thank you.
connect with you, Teacher Furbus's. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we would leave each other?
Uh, Go to your local library, even
I was
if
hoping you'd say
even
it.
even if even if you're not an avid reader like I used to be. Just go. There are there are things that happen at a library where you have groups that meet, or you can listen to someone speak. That doesn't necessarily involve reading. You can learn so much just by going to a library and talking to a library associate. Because I know sometimes, as much as I like to sit in silence and I enjoy not having human interaction,
Yeah.
it's necessary to form opinions. And so I think if people, if you go up to a library associate and say, what books are you reading this month? Can you help me figure out something? Just go have a conversation, get to know your library, get to know your local community, and if you truly feel passionate about something, get involved. The scariest thing that you can do is not get involved. Hindsight being 2020. If you go, oh, I cared about it, but I didn't get involved. That's your hindsight coming into play versus I'm
Yeah.
passionate about this. I want to get involved. So whether you're on the right or the left, either or,
Yeah.
you need to. If you truly care about someone or something, get involved. Like my mom wouldn't get mad at me as a kid if she didn't care about me, you know?
Yeah.
So just get passionate, be respectful of others, and visit your local library.
Jack, you've been tremendous. I hope
Thank
you
you.
have a lovely evening. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect.